Thank you. Thanks very much. Dean Simons, distinguished faculty, proud parents, family, friends, graduates, congratulations once again to the class of 2018. You have so much to be thankful for, so much to be proud of. Go ahead and give yourselves another round of applause. Now, I do feel a little bad being up here in front of you, and it's not because I no longer have subpoena power, although I feel bad about that. I feel bad accepting this honorary degree, undeserved, but I feel bad because I did a lot less to earn my degree than you did to earn yours, so please forgive me. Before I get to my main remarks, and I have three small bits of advice, one of which overlaps with what the dean said. There's some amount of trepidation when you graduate from law school, and you worry and wonder, like I did, are you going to like your first job? Are you going to like being a lawyer? And what I like to say, and it's a little bit unorthodox, I like to tell people that you have a lot of mobility as a lawyer. If you don't like your first job, you can go to another job. If you don't like being a litigator, you can become a corporate attorney. If you don't like being at a firm, you can go in-house somewhere. You can even leave the law altogether and do something else. And I worry when I say that family members are going to start throwing things. What are you talking about? Leave the law? You know, as a law school graduation, we spent a lot of money. I know you didn't spend any money on your degree, Preet, but we spent some resources. But a quick story that I like to tell. So I went to law school, as you heard. My brother also, my only sibling, went to law school. We both went to Columbia. We both went to law firms thereafter. He went to a big firm, then a small firm. I did the same thing. And then he got the business bug. He decided he didn't want to be a lawyer anymore. And at some point, I thought, you know, it would be nice to continue in public service like I had been, and I'd become the United States Attorney. And I figured that I have won the competition within my family for most impressive son of immigrant parents. And meanwhile, my brother was doing well. He was the general counsel of a company called Tops. He announces to the family that he is going to use all his savings, quit his job, and start a new business. And so what business is that? He's like, I'm going to sell diapers. You can imagine how proud my parents were, who were already upset that neither of us had gone to medical school. And so my brother, overnight, went from being, you know, a distinguished lawyer at a publicly traded company to selling with his best friend diapers on the internet under the slogan, and this is true, we're number one in number two. So, you know, so there are different paths that you can take. His path, incidentally, allowed him to be able to say, not that long after he started the company, guess what? Amazon bought our company for $540 million. Oh, now you're impressed. You're like, oh, poor kid brother. It's basically his way of saying, you know, hey, bro, I see your whole U.S. attorney thing, and I raise you $540 million. So you have choices. Look, so today is graduation day, and graduation means transition. For many of you, it means a transition from 3 years of taking loans to 300 years of paying them back. But it's also a transition from academia to actual practice. And that can be jarring because it entails a dramatic change in perspective. It means going from the abstract to the concrete. It means going from the grand to the granular. In law school, you dance with hypotheticals. In practice, you dine on reality. And so the law may first be learned in an ivory tower, but its effect is felt by flesh and blood people, often frail and frightened and human, who will have to rely against their will on lawyers like you for help to save their home or their job or their reputation. They will have to depend on you for a deal to close or a patent to issue or a criminal to be brought to justice. That is a titanic responsibility, and it should be both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Lawyers often hold the lives and livelihoods of people in the palms of their hands, and it will take more than book learning to do right by people who have no choice but to depend on you. No treatise can teach you how to coax a witness too terrified to testify, or how to challenge a foolish client who wants to lie to the government, or how to motivate a company to do the right thing. But these are precisely the kinds of human challenges that lie ahead of you, just on the other side of that diploma. The fact is, much of what will determine whether you are a success or a failure, whether you make a mark or leave no impression, resides not here in your brain, but here in your gut and here in your heart. Every great and influential lawyer, which I hope you all aspire to be, has always had not just an agile mind, but also guts and heart. And so along those lines, as I said, I have just 3 modest pieces of advice to offer this afternoon. It's pretty basic stuff, really, and it's this: seize opportunities to lead people, to be a good person, and to serve people other than yourself. Now, these things may sound self-evident, but I can tell you after 25 years of practice in public service, these common sense principles are not demonstrated often enough. That's sad and it's unfortunate. Sad because our profession, like it or not, continues to be mocked and maligned, and sad, more importantly, because there are so many problems to fix and so many people to help. So my first piece of advice is this: seize opportunities to lead. You are about to be St. John's Law graduates. So you know what that means, right? Endless requests from the alumni office for donations. But it also means tremendous opportunities for leadership. Whether you become a litigator or an outside counselor or a public servant, when you get there, you will have a choice. You can choose to be either a leader or a lemming. A leader is a person of courage and action with integrity and an independent mind. A lemming is a small and unattractive rodent that will follow other small and unattractive rodents off a cliff. Choose to be the former. Always remember that as a lawyer, you are not, no matter what other people tell you, you are not an ordinary professional. You are not only educated and credentialed, you are an officer of the court. You take an oath to uphold the Constitution. You are bound by strict codes of ethics, and you are part of a storied and still noble profession. And so you have a special responsibility and also special authority. And so do not ever shrink from asserting yourself proudly and forcefully as a lawyer when the moment arrives for you to lead rather than just go along. And let me tell you, you will have these moments, probably sooner and more often than you think. And it will be heart-stopping and difficult. When a client or a superior wants to violate a clear obligation, or sweep something under the rug, or misrepresent a fact, and insists that you, the lawyer, approve that thing, will you have the courage to confront the client, to have an unpleasant conversation, to incur wrath, to risk being fired? Will you have the courage to walk away? As some of you may know, once upon a time, about a year ago, the President of the United States called me, and I refused to call him back because I thought it was inappropriate and unethical. 20 hours later, I was asked to resign, and I am proud of what I did, even if it meant losing my job, because it was the right thing to do. And I'll say one more thing in light of recent news. I would rather be fired by the President of the United States. I'd rather be fired by the President of the United States than need to be pardoned by him. So the kind of leadership I'm talking about is not always easy. It can be hard. It can be harder than any exam you've ever studied for, harder than any class you've ever taken. But that's what it means, I think, to be a leader rather than a lemming. And as the famed lawyer-statesman Elihu Root once put it, quote, "Half the practice of a decent lawyer consists in telling would-be clients that they are damned fools and should stop." I dare say we need more of that. Not nearly enough members of our profession today heed that admonition. Not nearly enough. You can fill entire stadiums with lawyers who are satisfied by simply being rubber stamps and providers of cover so long as they are paid well for it. And while they are enriched, the rest of us are much poorer for it because the consequences of that attitude are, over time, catastrophic. I can tell you, as the former U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, that in scandal after scandal after scandal that you read about, and in tragedy after tragedy, if someone had just spoken up, or sounded the alarm, or refused to provide dubious legal cover, or simply told the client no, a lot of people would have been saved a lot of pain. We are counting on you to be better than that. So lead, don't just follow. Here's my second piece of advice. Be not just a good lawyer, but a good person, and find opportunities to be good to other people. Sadly, and you all know this, there's a coarsening that has taken place of law practice over time, to the point where some attorneys' first instincts is to attack and accuse and play tricks, and the decibel level is often out of all proportion to the case or controversy at hand. Not every minor litigation or corporate dispute is World War III. The law may be an ass, as Dickens wrote, but lawyers, really, lawyers don't have to be. I am not suggesting that everyone has to be best friends with everyone else, or that lawyers need to be genteel or pull punches. Certainly not. No, we didn't. But I am saying that lawyers need to keep some perspective, even in quote-unquote battle. Always remember that your opponents in a case are not your mortal enemies. They're your adversaries in an admirable system that aspires to treat every participant with dignity and respect. Remember also, not just to be respectful, but also honorable and honest. The best and most effective lawyers that I have ever known, the ones who beat us more often than anyone else, were uniformly above board, not underhanded. They were lawyers, not tricksters, and they were men and women always true to their word. And by the way, everything I have said about your adversaries goes double for your colleagues, whether they're your supervisors or subordinates or your peers. Try to be the kind of colleague that people want to take a bullet for, rather than the kind of colleague that people fantasize about putting a bullet in. I have seen too many lawyers who manage by intimidation and fear, whose default mode is to bludgeon and belittle, and they justify it, you'll hear this, they justify it by claiming to be perfectionists who just demand excellence. That's a load of nonsense, and don't ever fall for it or emulate it. Abusive people are weak, not strong. As the late five-star general and commander-in-chief Dwight Eisenhower, not known as a weak person, once said, quote, "You don't lead people by hitting them over the head. That's assault, not leadership." So treat people well. Remember to praise the deserving and mentor the inexperienced. Remember to offer encouragement and to share credit. Trust me on this. If you behave with courtesy and kindness to both your adversaries and your colleagues, you will stand out and you will succeed. My third and final piece of advice should come as no surprise and echoes what the dean said. Find ways to serve other people. That is your great opportunity as a lawyer. There are people who spend their entire lives waiting for the chance to make a difference in their community or their country. For so many, for too many, that opportunity never comes. But every single one of you, simply by virtue of your law degree, will have that chance every single day. And that is a lucky thing. The virtue of serving the public cannot be overstated. Not only does the world benefit, but you benefit too. Tell me anyone who has spent time in public service who hasn't loved it, who hasn't learned from it, and who hasn't advanced in their profession because of it. A lawyer in public service is one of the great win-win propositions in the history of propositions. You grow and gain, and the world gains too. Now, it may be that some people don't think to try because they wonder what difference can they make just by themselves. They perhaps worry that their contribution might be too small to be worth the effort and the sacrifice. And to those people, I say it is worth remembering the words of Edmund Burke, who once observed, "Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little." Now, I understand it's not in the cards for most people to spend a full career in public service for financial reasons or family reasons or because of other career aspirations. I myself spent 6 years in private practice before the next 17 in the government. Given the state of the world at this moment, please find some small way to serve other people. I have said this before, and I try to say it as often as I can. From time to time in your career, find some small way to show that lawyers can make not just a living, but also a difference. Find some small way to show that lawyers can work the occasional little miracle. Find some way to show that at a time when so many cynics believe that so many attorneys are either demons or devils, that lawyers can sometimes be angels too. Now, I know that for many people in the outside world who sit at a distant remove from this celebration, who are not giddy from graduation, talk of lawyers as angels or as miracle workers is downright laughable. It is not laughable to me. I submit a part of your responsibility, not only to your profession, but to yourselves and to your country, is to find ways to wipe the cynical smiles from those skeptics' faces. Nothing great was ever accomplished with a cynical heart. Many decades after he served as the U.S. Attorney in my district, more than a century ago, after also serving as Secretary of State and War, Henry Stimson described the challenge for people who might wish to make a difference in the world. And Henry Stimson said this, quote, "Let them have hope and virtue, and let them believe in mankind and its future. For there is good as well as evil, and the man who tries to work for the good, believing in its eventual victory, while he may suffer setback and even disaster, will never know defeat. The only deadly sin I know is cynicism." Close quote. And let me leave you with this thought. Great lawyers have never been more important than now. The rule of law has never been more important than now. And good leaders have never been more important than now. And that means you. Congratulations and good luck.